All right. So I'm currently reading Ed Milet's latest book. It's called The Power of One More. It's a really good book. It's the section I came across just today. It brought up something that I had read before. I got a bunch of bullet points here. I'm going to read through it, go through all of it, all that shit. So the section I was talking about, the section that I was reading was talking about sort of the difference between being interested and committed to something. So, let's just start with this quote. So he had this really great quote in here by a guy named Ken Blanchard. So there is a difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested in doing something, when it's convenient. When you're committed to doing something, you accept no excuses, only results. I've heard this whole thing before. I don't remember where I heard it from, but I kind of forgot about it, and so as I was reading through this, I started thinking a lot about it and kind of looking at things in my life. And, the other thing too is like, whenever I come across this information now, almost every episode, I think this would be a really good topic to talk with Cub about. And I think this one especially, I feel like he would have a whole lot of really good information. So hopefully some of the stuff that I come up with here is on point with what he might say. I was just thinking that, so I don't know. Anyway, so, I thought of a few things, and so if you're interested in doing something versus if you're committed to doing something, like the quote says, if you're interested, you're only going to do it when it's convenient for you. And a lot of the chapter that I was reading, Ed was talking about how successful people and people that and I'm not just talking about money success or any of that kind of stuff. It's like success in any area of your life. So if you're talking about fitness, if you're talking about your graph, your business, your relationships, all of that kind of stuff, it requires you to be committed in order to really, really get the results that you're really looking for. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, because these are things that I've gone through in my life. Like there was a time where I was fat and I didn't want to be fat anymore. And it's like, there was a long time and many years where I was interested in losing weight, but I wasn't committed. And I was interested in getting in shape, but I wasn't committed to it. So it took me years to get to that point where I felt like, I had gotten past all of that shit. It took a really long time. And it's because I wasn't committed, And I remember early on in my graph career, if you're looking at, say, 91 and 92, I was interested in graph, but I don't know if I would say that I was committed. But then in 93, when I met GK and I got put on MSK and I started surrounding myself with what would be considered higher level people in the graphs culture, I really became committed to being a better graph writer and excelling in all areas. And I made a lot of progress in a short amount of time. And the episode that just came out before this one, I talked about, how mentorship really helped that. So obviously it was mentorship that helped quite a bit, but being committed and no longer being interested, it was more, I think that was more of what created that. Well, I don't know if it was more, but it's all part of it, obviously. So the mentorship, but then me being committed to the process. And another thing you could look at is like with business, if you have this idea and you're sort of interested in starting this business and you always remain interested and you never cross that threshold of being committed to building that business or starting that business or whatever, you're not going to be prepared for all the shit you have to go through. I mean, anybody that's owned or run a business before, that shit is not fucking easy. Like it's hard every single day. And a lot of times it sucks. But if you're committed to the process, that's how you get through it. I mean, that's one of the tools, being committed. So if you think about things in your life, think about things that you were committed to versus things that you were interested in, and look at the difference in the results. Most likely you're going to see that the things that you were just interested in, you didn't really get the results you were looking for, but the things that you were committed to, the things that you were like, I'm going to fucking do this. And that's just how it is. You're able to overcome all those obstacles because you're committed to the process. So I started going back through and taking some stock on shit in my own life. So if I relay some of that stuff to you, maybe that'll help you kind of make some connections in your own life. So I've told this story before, so I'll try to give you a Cliff Notes version of it for those that have heard it, but some of you may not have heard it yet. So when I started Machine Studio in 2015, I was committed to that. And it wasn't even a business. It was a community type of thing. I opened up a space, and it was for the graph culture. You know, it was essentially a 2,400 square foot kind of rectangular shaped building. My dad and I built a wall in the middle, and the front space was mainly just an art gallery and a black book table, and people could come in and draw and you know, be part of art shows and things like that. And then on the other side of the wall, I had all my personal shit back there, and I just lived back there. I slept in the back of my business for 7 years. I didn't. There wasn't a lot of money coming in because it wasn't really a business. It was more like a community type of thing. So eventually it turned into a business. And I won't get too far down the line with that, but you know, I wanted to commit to this thing. So, you know, for many years, that's what I did. I committed, and it was very, very, very inconvenient. It was the most inconvenient lifestyle that I've ever lived. You know, I'm not complaining because it was fucking super convenient compared to homeless people or people in other countries that are, you know, they're sleeping in the dirt. You know, there's people that had it way worse, but for my comparison in terms of what I was used to, you know, I owned a house, and I had it's a small house, but I mean, it was a nice, comfortable lifestyle. You know, I had all of the normal shit that you have when you live in a house. You know, I had hot water and a shower and a kitchen and all this kind of stuff. And then when I moved into that little space, I didn't have any of those things anymore. I didn't have a shower. I didn't have hot water. I didn't have air conditioning or heat or any of those kind of things. I slept on a recliner. I was just, you know, it was very inconvenient in comparison to how I lived before. And so showering at the YMCA, going to the laundromat, all these kind of things they're not convenient, but I was committed to doing this thing. So it was just, I'm just going to do it. And that's just the fucking way it is. That, you know, again, I'm not trying to act like this is some big, huge deal, because a lot of people have it a lot worse. And that lifestyle would have been a huge level up for a lot of people out there. So, but as far as being committed and, you know, doing that thing, you know, it makes sense to this topic. You know, if you really look at, I didn't have to do those things, but I was committed to that process, and I was committed to building this thing. And so that's what made it so that every single day when I woke up and it sucked, or if it was 95 degrees and there's no air conditioning, or if it's cold as fuck, like it's, you know, obviously LA doesn't get that cold, but like it gets down to like 35 degrees in the winter, and with, you know, with no heat or air, those, you know, those summers and winters, it still kind of sucks, you know. It's still not convenient, but every day I would wake up committed to the process. So it wasn't quitting was essentially off the table. Like it never really, I mean, quitting is always an option. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not, but I didn't feel like it was an option. And that's sort of the way that I've always been with any business stuff that I've done. I like to think that if I'm smart enough to know when something isn't worth pursuing, but so far I haven't really found that, you know. So I just don't quit. I just keep going, and it's because of that commitment to the process. I'm not interested in building this business. I'm committed to building this business. So it's a different mindset, and it's an important distinction. Another thing on a personal level, something that was very inconvenient was my relationship with Jesse. You know, when I started seeing her. She lived in Chicago and I lived in LA. And so we would only be able to see each other like once a month for a few days. And, that shit sucked. It was very inconvenient. I had to fly out there. She had to fly out here. And, it wasn't an ideal situation, but we were both committed to the process. So that's just how it was. That was what we had to do. Eventually she ended up moving out to LA and we moved in together, and, being committed to that and doing all that stuff. I think we did it for about 8 months, and it wasn't ideal, but we were both committed to the process. So that made it so that we weren't going to quit. We ended up moving to Vegas a year later. So here we are now, but that's just another example of being committed to something, even if it's inconvenient. If I was just interested in seeing her, it might not have been worthwhile to fly out there and do all of these kind of things. Along these lines, I started thinking about personal development. So I've done an audit on my life and on my business, and I can really see exactly when personal development really started shifting the kind of everything in my life. You can really see it in my business. Like I can look at this, I can look at the monthly sales, and I showed this to my team, and it was like, I remember the first book that I read when I committed to the process of personal development, as far as reading and all that stuff. Because I've talked about other personal development things like meditation and trying to get my mindset right. But I really didn't start reading until I didn't start reading like religiously. I don't know if religiously is the right word, but I didn't start reading completely regularly up until like a couple of years ago. But you can see, if you look at the trajectory of my business, and that's just something that's tracked. It's a number that I can, it's a report that I can generate that's a visual. So I showed it to my team, and you can see, I remember the book that I read when this whole thing started. So the graph, is going, it looks like, the early days of Amazon or fucking some crypto coin or something. And then right there, I read this book, and then the graph starts going up right from there, So it's like, you can see right where that shit started, and the trajectory of my business went up, and it's continuing to go up, and it's all happened when I really got committed to personal development. So the whole point of all that is that personal development is not convenient. Most days I don't wake up in the morning and want to read my 10 pages, but I still do it every day because I know, being committed to that process, I know the results that it gets. I can see it in my business, and I can see it in my own personal health and wellness and mentality and all of these kind of things. So I'm committed to that process. Every day I'm going to read because I know being committed to that is going to have a huge effect on my life. So I have to do it. That's the way it feels to me. I have to do it. And then physical fitness, physical health, all this kind of shit, that all ties in. Like, you can't have mental health without physical health, in my opinion. I mean, those two things, I just don't see how people will go to therapy and take medication. I was one of these people. I was fat, and I wasn't working out. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't doing anything, but I was going to therapy, and I was taking antidepressants, and I was doing all this kind of shit. You can't do, this is my opinion. I'm not a fucking doctor, but you can't do that. It's both things. Your mind and your body is the same shit. So like, if you're not doing both of those things, you're not doing everything that you need to be doing. So on that note, I know that being physically healthy and physically fit is monumental. It's super important. And if I give any shits about personal development at all, I have to take good physical care of myself. But I'll be honest, there isn't a single fucking day, I think, in my whole entire life that I've ever once wanted to work out. Like, not one single time where I was like, yeah, I'm going to get this workout in. I'm not one of those people. I don't think I ever will be. I'm 48 years old, and I can't remember a single time where I was fired up about doing a workout. Every single time it's like, fuck, man, I don't want to do this shit. But I got to do it. You know, I'm committed. I'm committed to the process. And I know that it's important. So are you interested in being physically healthy, or are you committed to it? That's the difference. That's what's going to make the difference in whether or not you succeed. When you look at a program like 75 Hard, whenever, because I post about it all the time. I talk about it all the time. It changed my life. It changes most people's lives that do it and do it properly, and don't try to fudge the thing, like kind of do a workout outside, like counting your garage door was open or something. Like, you do it 100%. The people that do it 100%, I would say the vast majority of those people, it changed their lives. So I'm going to talk about it all the time. And so I post about it on my Instagram. You know, I post the little progress calendar, you know, day, whatever. And, you know, hopefully that people see it and learn about the program, and then maybe it changes their lives too. And so a lot of people that do see me post that, I've had multiple people say, hey, I'm going to start 75 Hard tomorrow or Monday or whatever. Or some people will say, I'm thinking about trying 75 Hard. And one of my responses, even before I really started thinking about it on this level, I say, don't try 75 Hard, do 75 Hard. Because if you try to do it, if you go into it, that mindset that you're like, I'm going to try to get this done, that's, in my opinion, you're setting yourself up for failure, because that's not, it's fucking hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It's scalable, so you don't have to like beat the shit out of yourself. I mean, if you're not in any kind of physical shape, a lot of people might be like, I can't work out twice a day. You know, I'm 350 pounds or whatever. I haven't worked out for 6 years. You can do it. You just have to scale it to something that makes sense to you. Scale it to a point where you're going to push yourself, but don't go into it like you haven't worked out for 6 years and now you're going to go and fucking lift the max weights and all this kind of shit. You're going to, that's setting yourself up for failure also. But in my opinion, if you say, I'm going to try to do this, and that's how I did it the first time, I'm going to try 75 Hard. I remember telling Jesse, yeah, I'm going to try to do that. And I failed. It wasn't until like, look, I'm doing this shit, and if something happens and I fuck up, I'm going to start over again from day one, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to get it done. And I've done it multiple times now. I didn't mean to even talk about 75 Hard. It just makes sense here. You have to commit to it. So let's see. I think I have just a little bit more here. Oh yeah. So Ed talks about equanimity a lot, and that's being able to remain calm under like stressful situations. I think I have that right. I meant to look it up to make sure I had that definition correct, but I forgot. But I think that's what it means. So he has a quote here, or I'll quote his book. He says, you can't sustain inconvenient efforts and raise to another level unless you approach life with the right mental mindset. So that's kind of what I was just talking about. You know, if you don't approach it with that level of commitment, that I'm not going to try this, I'm going to commit to doing it. This is something I'm going to do. I'm not interested. I'm committed to doing it. That's how you're going to succeed. That's how you're going to find that part of, because you know what's crazy is like most things aren't even a physical challenge. Like even getting into shape, you know, you think like it's going to be physically challenging, but it's so much more mentally challenging than anything. Like anybody, if you think about that for just a second, like how much harder is it to do the workout than it is, or sorry, let me switch that. How much harder is it to convince yourself to do the workout than it is to actually do the workout? For me, it's like there's not even a number that's big enough to measure that. It's like the whole entire challenge is getting myself to work out. The actual workout is, even when I'm challenging myself and pushing myself really hard, it's nothing compared to the mental fucking gymnastics that I have to do to get myself just to do the fucking workout. It's not even comparable at all. I got off track here. What the fuck was he talking about here? Okay, so he says that it's hard. It's hard. Okay, back to the what I was talking about was the equanimity shit. So when he talks about equanimity, it's like, so if you say you're going to commit to something, that means you're going to commit to getting the shit kicked out of you sometimes, not physically, like literally, but if you're gonna build a business and you're really going to build it, and like you're really committed to building a good business, you're going to take a lot of fucking stressful shit. I mean, it's the nature of it. If you're going to lose 100 pounds, if you're going to become this really great graph writer, if you're going to become this great artist, if you're going to do anything that's hard, you're probably going to get the shit beat out of you. Figuratively. I mean, unless you're going to try to be an MMA fighter, then literally, but anything hard that you're going to do, you're going to take some lumps. And so what he's talking about is trying to find a way to have this equanimity. So what he says is, I should have wrote down exactly what he says, but what I got from the chapter was, you're going to be doing these hard things and you're going to be pushing yourself. And you see a lot of this in entrepreneur culture, like just grind and grind and grind and no sleep and all this kind of shit and just pushing yourself. I understand that, and that's kind of the lifestyle that I live, but at the same time, it's not a happy way to do things. Like if that's all you're doing is just grinding away and you can't find a way to be happy in that process, you can't find a way to have equanimity in that hard shit, it's not going to be a very enjoyable life, you know? This whole idea maybe to some people is like, I'll grind, you know, all this time and then I'll enjoy my life after or something like that. And, you know, maybe that's how I was thinking too. I'm not sure, but I'm trying to find a way to be, to be happy during all of that stuff. Cause it's a challenge. It's a big challenge for me. It's something I think about probably more than anything else is how do I keep pushing through all of this hard shit and still just be happy about it? One of the things I had talked about on another episode was going outside in the morning, you know, and getting a little sun and being grateful for all this shit, you know, being grateful for the adversity because it's building character. It's building mental toughness. It's doing all of these good things for me. But the challenge is like, how do you be happy right now? And I do not have the answer for that, but I'm certainly trying. I think I'm heading in the right direction. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, that's all I got. I've mentioned this before, and I'm trying to put a little more. I'm trying. There I go. I am committed to putting in more effort into this group, and I've talked about it before. We're trying to build. Fuck, it's hard to get out of that whole thing. I shouldn't try to do this. I should commit to doing this fucking thing, you know, so it's easier said than done. And there's proof right there. We are building a community of like-minded people. So the idea is whenever anybody reaches out to me and they talk about the podcast in a positive way, maybe it changed their perspective. You know, some people send me these really crazy messages that I'm like pretty taken back by, but in a good way. I'm gathering all those people into a group. And so long story short, we have a Discord channel. We're doing Zoom meetups. And the idea is that we're bringing all these like-minded people together and trying to make positive changes. So I'm not going to talk too much more about it. If you have any interest in that at all, you can go to graffitimachine.com. There's a link there. It says join our community. You can also hit me up on Instagram at bus166. I can get an email if you want, graffiti@machinestudio.com. And yeah, we'll get you going. So anyway, that's all I got. Hope you are doing well, and I'll talk to you soon.
All we ask is that you share with another person close to you any bit of positivity and anything that can lift them up, and we will have succeeded for the day.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. And fuck it.
Stay up.
All right, then.